We're here to make a new type of news.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Making news just for you. It's January 26th here in Seoul. I'm Shin Yeun, and you're watching News Generation. Joining me in the studio is Cheska Dainha.
Happy Friday, everyone!
Happy Friday! And Park Ki-hoon.
Thanks for having me.
Good morning. Now, both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. As usual, let's start with our news feed, which covers different hashtags and news items that have been trending on social media over the past 24 hours. Korean ramyeon is selling like hotcakes, the most popular being 신라면. The manufacturer Nongshim announced on Wednesday that 신라면's domestic and international sales last year grew 14% on year, surpassing $906 million. Over 1.6 billion units were sold. In other words, 53 packs of ramen were sold every second around the world. And the United Nations has made clear that the Palestinian state needs to be independent. Secretary General Antonio Guterres told the Security Council on Tuesday that any refusal to accept a two-state solution is inconceivable. Guterres pointed to how there's no better alternative to bring peace in the Israel-Palestinian conflict. He said a one-state solution would strip the already large number of Palestinians confined in Gaza of any sense of freedom and dignity. Israel, on the other hand, has declined such a solution and said it has been and will continue to seek total victory. And a new function has been made on KakaoTalk dubbed the Memorial Profile. This will allow immediate family members or acquaintances to better mourn late KakaoTalk users. The app will allow users to choose whom of their Kakao friends should manage their profile after their death. In case the user passes away without activating this function, the bereaved family can submit various documents as evidence proving their relationship with the deceased. And the latest Memorial Profile function will put a national flower as the deceased person's profile picture. A message will automatically be sent to all the deceased user's friends and group chat, reading how the bereaved is now a friend to be remembered. Friends of that user can send their condolences through a one-on-one chat room. Now, here in the studio, what do you think about the latest function on KakaoTalk, and do you think you'll be using it anytime soon? No, actually not anytime soon, but in the future.
You want me to? Hopefully not. I think this just shows how much technology has evolved over time. And it seems like the new digital way of remembering someone who's passed away. As much as this is a very sensitive issue, this function may alleviate the burden of actually sending out, obituary notices to people through like one-on-one chat rooms. So we can find out just through like that function, automatically will pop up with the flowers.
Right, yeah.
Anyway, but on the other hand, in Korea, it's always been a tradition of physically attending the funerals and actually giving the condolence money.
Right.
But since the pandemic and like changes in like over generations and culturally as well, it's become socially acceptable to not physically attend those funerals, those kind of funerals, and just wire the money and just send a message, condolence message. I'm not sure if I'll actually use this function with my family members right away, but we'll just have to wait and see if other people actually find this very effective or useful through, obviously, experiences, but we'll just have to wait and see for now.
Exactly, and as you mentioned, I do think this reflects our generation's use of digital gadgets and all these apps, because nowadays it is more common for us to be wiring money, bereavement money, and not really physically attending funerals. So I do think KakaoTalk has taken the right step in the right direction, as in they were pioneering this new function.
Absolutely.
What are your thoughts on it?
As Ki-hoon and you mentioned, I think this is definitely a pioneering of technology, and I'm very impressed that Kakao is always adding new functions to sort of that caters to what everyday people kind of go through. And as you may know, my grandfather passed away. But for someone like me, what I actually liked is that I didn't have to let everyone know, because I didn't want to sort of share that sadness or the burden with everyone on Kakao. So I told them after it happened. So I hope they have a function where it just doesn't blast the memorial to all my friends, because I wouldn't want everyone to sort of be in that mood just because I'm going through something.
Right.
But I also think the mobile monitor transition, I think that's a really easy and a great way to go.
And I hope if Kakao Talk is watching this, they could take your opinion into account.
Yeah, not everyone wants to, keep spreading their news to everyone.
Exactly. I think that's a really good point there, because it is a personal matter if you think about it. Now, switching gears to our main discussion topic of the day. Today, we're going to be talking about a growing brain disorder found among our generation. It's Youngzheimer's, referring to how young adults are getting Alzheimer's or dementia. So, Cheska, just how common is Alzheimer among the younger generation as of now, and why?
Sure. So in Korea, we have coined the term Youngzheimer, and our generation seems to be very keenly aware of it. So let's take a look at the screen to see some figures. Now, I found the numbers very interesting, as almost half of people that surveyed self-declared themselves as having early dementia, or so-called Youngzheimer. Now, before those of you watching this have a minor panic attack thinking, oh my God, is this an actual medical condition that I also need to get checked? Very fortunately, and at least according to the article that we read, this is more of a social phenomenon rather than an actually classified illness. So a clear definition or differentiation would be that Alzheimer's that we know of are the result of actual demise of brain cells, whereas Youngzheimer are more the result of like overwork and overload of the brain in our current generation with so much information and use of digitals. So as this does affect the brain directly, it could have some potential implications on, other subsequent brain illnesses. So it is something to be aware of, but it's not a classified illness.
I see. So it's more of a social phenomenon, as you mentioned.
Yes.
And as much as millennials and Gen Z are taking up a bigger proportion of the Alzheimer's population, or they're trying to classify themselves as Youngzheimer, a lot of self-diagnosed tests are trending. So I'll read a few questions out for you guys to test whether or not you have Youngzheimer's or not. And we're going to bring in our OX signs. We haven't been doing this in a while, so let's bring up these panels again. Now, the first question I'd like to ask is, do you know 3 phone numbers by heart? So that means 3 phone numbers, and they're 3. That means how many digits? I think 11 in total. So 33 digits in total.
Okay,
and
ready?
excluding yours.
Excluding mine.
Let's not include yours.
That's an immediate X.
Wait. Okay, cute. I'll give you the
sorry.
benefit of the doubt. If you had included yours, would you remember 3?
No.
No? Okay.
Either way.
All right,
I only
Jessica,
know
what
mine.
about you? Okay, you remember 3 by heart.
I do, and I want to make it clear, I might be cheating my way a little bit because our family phone numbers have a similar digit. But I also included my American phone number, so I know at least about 6.
Okay,
on top
that's
of my head.
actually
Can you
good.
please say 3?
We need to test it
Just
out
wanna make
right
sure.
now. Yeah.
So I want that.
Hey, what about you, Kyun?
The only number that I know is mine.
Oh.
And just one extra. It's my brother's.
Oh, okay.
And the only reason is in Korea, and of course overseas, like when I buy certain things in certain stores, the staff always ask me about, do you want to save up points?
Right.
And
Oh
I would
my
have
God.
to call out a number.
Is that
And
why?
the only membership that, I don't have any memberships.
Right.
I'm not the type to sign up for a membership.
Yeah.
So my brother does. So
Yeah.
I would always just, say his number. But
Yeah.
after a while, I said it so many times that I just, naturally
memorized it.
memorized it. And saying this now, I kind of feel bad for my parents. So
Yeah.
I might want to take this opportunity to, start memorizing their numbers as well.
I don't think you will. I think you're just saying that.
But that's the thing, like, is we're so reliant on
I
our mobile
know.
phones. Like, we can just, search it up
That's
and
so
just
comfortable.
read through it. But
Exactly.
to be honest, like, long time ago, obviously when we didn't have smartphones, we had to memorize a
Yeah.
lot of things,
Yeah.
including numbers as well. But with me, I'm really weak with numbers.
Yeah.
That's my excuse. I'm good at memorizing faces.
Yeah, you
and
are.
places.
Unit
Yeah.
That's all
plus
that
one on
matters.
Youngzheimer.
So this is exactly one of the questions that will diagnose whether you have Youngzheimer or not, because we have such a heavy reliance on phones. We
Yes.
don't really find the need to be memorizing digits on a daily basis.
And
So-
Yeon, if I may, it's actually called also a Google effect.
Yes.
Now everybody's Googling things, so people find no use to memorize things, and we have navigation, so people don't know how to read maps anymore.
But because of that, there is a higher tendency of people feeling like they have Youngzheimer.
That's right.
And another question that can self-diagnose is, do you remember what you had for dinner last night? This is a very simple question, but if you think about it, and I need a knee-jerk reaction, guys. Do you remember 1, 2, 3?
Yeah.
Oh,
I do. I actually
no.
do.
Okay, that is so interesting. Let's start with you, Cheska.
I was kind of hoping that I would have double O's and kind of have
Yeah.
Ki-hyun be the Youngzheimer, but this is a giant no for me. I don't remember what I ate last night, like the day before. Like, I would have to retrace my steps of where I have been to realize that.
Really?
Yeah.
No, it's so fascinating for me because you remember like 3 numbers by heart, but then you don't remember what 6 numbers. Okay, I'll put that there. But then you don't remember what you have for dinner.
No idea.
That's pretty common, though. What about you, Kyun?
That's the thing. I'm a little different to Cheska because I'm not good with numbers, but what I'm good at is actually remembering the activity I did. Like where I was, who I did it with, why I did it. And so like it's kind of like the moment, the picture that I kind of remember, not exactly like the food. So yesterday, the only reason I remember what I ate, which was chicken, chimek with beer, is only because Korea played Malaysia in the Asian Cup. So what I remember is the activity, you know, watching soccer with my brother, and then I would retrace, you know, my memory, recall, and then think, oh, so I had chicken.
Right.
So that's the way I kind of remember what I ate. And usually I try to cook at home as well. So when you actually cook at home for yourself, the preparing stage, the cooking and the cleaning up stage, you know, it takes a long time. So it's pretty hard to forget what you actually ate, you know, last night, especially for dinner.
Now you're making
otherwise,
it really bad.
I'll be quite worried if I didn't remember what I ate when I cook my own food.
Given the preparation process that you go through, I do think you need to remember. But I guess that's really good mental training.
That's true.
And this is one way that we can really think if we have Youngzheimer or not. But it's not just Youngzheimers. We're seeing more young adults getting ADHD. And Cheska, once again, could you please explain why so?
Absolutely. So with Youngzheimer, to be honest, it was very recent to me and I was a bit foreign. However, I've actually heard a growing number of my friends or seniors at work actually talking about this. Some self-diagnosed, but I also know they get to counseling and therapy and take series of tests and realize that they do actually have adult ADHD. So now let's take a look at the screen to see how the numbers have changed. Now, in about the last 4 years, starting at 2018, the number of people that have been diagnosed increased almost twice, as we can see. Now, if we break this down even further, the 20s and 30s had the highest increases, and the 30s actually increased by almost 7 times during the last 4 years. And unlike Youngzheimer, we mentioned before, this is more of an actual diagnosis and classified on the medical journal. Now, we might be more familiar with ADHD for young children, but adult ADHD is slightly different. So according to WebMD, some common symptoms are, you know, issues with attention, mood fluctuation, and impulsiveness, and loss of time control, which I think is the reason why a lot of my friends and people around me are trying to get the diagnosis, because these symptoms are relatively common for people living in the modern society who's working 24/7 around the clock.
And speaking of diagnosis, I'd like to do another quick self-test on adult ADHD. So if you can hold up your OX on the next question I'll be asking you.
Okay.
Is it difficult for you guys to try to do things in order? Starting with you, Cheska.
Yeah.
It is?
Yeah.
Really? Why so?
I get bored. Like when I have to do things in transition, I mean, unless it has to be, Ki-hoon mentioned cooking. Like even when I'm cooking, I have about 3 different things going on at the time. Like I'm cooking, I'm washing my laundry, like I'm cleaning the bathroom, and then I'm reading a book. Like I like doing things that a lot that kind of stimulate me, and now you're making me feel like I have.
No.
but I've got to be honest. Yeah.
Right, but I have to say to our viewers, just because you tick the boxes for one of these questions does not mean that you have adult ADHD. This is just one of the self-diagnosed tests that are trending, and it is a good mental game for you to really think into whether or not you might have symptoms.
Yeah, these
but
are
what
great
about you,
questions.
Kyun? Do you do things in order, or is it difficult for you?
You know, a few years back, yes, it was very hard for me to really, you know, do things in order, because if I didn't organize or pre-plan what I had to do, I'll do multiple things at the same time, like multitasking, which a lot of young generations do these days, and they think it's really effective, but to be honest, it really reduces the productivity and it just uses more brain power, and you actually end up doing less, getting less done. That's
Why are
what
you
I
looking
think.
at me when you're talking?
I was trying to look at but I kept looking at Cheska anyway, because you held up. Oh, but now it's X for me, because ever since I realized that multitasking really isn't that effective in terms of how I get my work done, and it just increased my stress level as well. For now, what I do is I just do one task at a time.
Apparently, that's
Bit
really
by bit,
good.
yep.
Yeah,
One
if
at
you
a
do
time.
it bit by bit in order and try not to do multitasking, that actually really hypes up your attention span and concentration, which steers you away from ADHD. Now, the second question I have is, do you have a tendency to postpone things or avoid things that makes you really uncomfortable? So are you avoidant? I think that would be a better way to word this question. Hold up your signs, guys. So is it an O or an X? Cheska says O, Kyun says X. Okay, now I'm going to hear from Kyun first. first.
Yes.
Kyun, I don't think you have many symptoms that really point to adult ADHD.
You just need to
that's
memorize.
good.
Yeah, that's really
Just
good.
memorize more numbers. That's all.
So what I do is I try to do things that are very stressful first before anything else. Because,
Wow.
you know, usually things that are very stressful to you, it's something that you need to do. You have to
Yeah.
do it.
Right.
You cannot avoid it in life. So what I do is, you know, the more you avoid it, it will accumulate over time.
That's
and then it becomes too burdensome, too overwhelming to actually do it later on. So I try to do it, you know, as soon as possible, as much as I can. You know, good things happen after you know, overcome the bad, stressful
Right.
things. So, I try my best to handle, you know, stressful things in the least stressful way.
That's going in the right direction for sure.
Really?
Yeah.
Yay! I don't have ADHD.
But what about you, Cheska? You held up X again.
Well, as a representative of adult ADHD, no, I'm kidding. I do put things off, but just to be clear, I think I have a personality where I need a little bit of preparation to tackle it head on. So it takes a lot of time for me to actually get to the place where I'm ready to tackle it. But I think I don't have ADHD. I hope not.
But this is something that we can't fully diagnose
Yes.
ourselves. That's why talking to an actual medical and mental expert is very important when it comes to brain-related diagnoses. Now, we're going to ask our viewers if they've ever been diagnosed with Youngzheimer's or adult ADHD as well to find just how common this is, or if they ever wanted to get tested, and if so, why. Take a look at the screen to find out what 3 of them had to say. Real Internet Friend said, I got an adult ADHD diagnosis as an adult when things are not being structured for you by someone else. I noticed I was having to put a lot more time and effort into keeping myself organized and on top of things as compared to what other people seem to need to do. Tierce Bell said, I actually have an ADHD diagnosis. I was 7 when I was diagnosed. It definitely interferes with your ability to focus quite a bit. Imagine sitting down to work on something only to be distracted every couple of minutes. It's not fun. Leon said, I guess I have a bit of Youngzheimer's as any short-term memory is so bad, I can't even remember sometimes what I did the day before. I think it may be because of over-reliance and excessive use of my phone to record information. Now, to better find out and add an expert's analysis into this, we're going to include a researcher in cognitive neuroscience in our talks to better find out about Youngzheimer's and adult ADHD. Stay tuned for our live interview. We're now going to include a cognitive neuroscience graduate researcher in our talks. It's Tessie Gahiga, who concluded her clinical neuroscience master's at University College London. Welcome, Tessie.
Thank you very much for having me. Lovely meeting you all.
All right, Tessie, let me ask you the first question. Based on your research, what would you determine the causality to be behind our generation's heavy use of digital products and getting Youngzheimer's or adult ADHD?
Of course. I think it's important to highlight the big differences that I think you touched upon a little bit earlier between ADHD, including adult ADHD and Youngzheimer. So they're caused by different things, and their relationship to digital products and social media use and abuse are going to be different. So for ADHD specifically, and my research is in adult ADHD, you have 3 types. You have primarily inattention, primarily hyperactive, and a combination of the 2. Because it's a neurodevelopmental disorder that starts in childhood, and adults with ADHD are people who had it as a child and continue to have it as an adult. Important to highlight, not everybody is diagnosed as a child. There's a lot of underdiagnosed people, especially in countries that are not in the West. I specialize in African and Asian populations specifically. There's a lot of underdiagnosis. So a lot of people realize they have ADHD much later. For people who have ADHD, because of impulsive symptoms, typically their relationship with social media is going to be different. We see higher rates of social media addiction in people with ADHD due to the impulsivity element. It also makes it more likely to get addicted to short form content like TikTok, which has shorter time span. So it's just much easier to get addicted. But it's important to highlight that digital media doesn't cause ADHD. It's just that if you have ADHD, you're more likely to use it more essentially, and it can make your symptoms worse. If that makes
Tessie,
sense.
as you mentioned, it is quite common. So why don't we ask the last question, Kyun, as to how what we can do about this?
So, yeah, what do you think is the best way to prevent these kind of brain diseases, Tessie?
Yes, absolutely. So it's all going to be about management. If you have ADHD, if you have adult ADHD, you see yourself having a lot of time on social media. It might be worth looking at treatments. So we have two types of treatment. You have medical treatment and you have psychiatric treatment. We recommend, depending on, every person is different, depending on your symptoms. Each symptom is on a different scale, or so it's important that you talk to a medical professional. But essentially, things like dialectic behavioral therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, all of these are very helpful. For Youngzheimer specifically, as you noticed, it's more of a colloquial term. I do want to highlight a lot of people have long symptoms that do lead to feeling like, oh, my memory is foggy, I can't really think very well. That can lead to people thinking that they have Youngzheimer. Right. But to be fair to them, you can detect Alzheimer earlier. There are blood tests for people to detect it early, because essentially you have plaques that build up in your brain over years and years, and it's only when it's too late, when you're in your 60s and over, are going to have symptoms. But it starts building up much earlier. Typically has a lot of a genetic component, so you can start the symptoms much later.
Right. So just being aware that it can come to you at an early age seems to be the key way for us to better diagnose and prevent this. Thank you so much, Tessie. It was a pleasure talking to you today.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for your time.
All right, and ending off on what Tessie just said, what do you think we need to be doing, or in terms of our daily habits, what should we try to change in order to prevent getting Youngzheimer's or adult ADHD?
I actually did a little bit of research, and I would just like to give two quick ways. One is the exercise, because neuroscientist Daniel Walpert said the brain's purpose is for the movement, so exercise, and also meditation, because that's the way to calm your brain waves. So I would highly recommend doing those two, and I should too, also, yeah.
And also, I think our high reliance on digital media, gadgets, and all these apps out there is taking a toll in terms of our brain activity. So throughout the whole episode, we mentioned daily habits you can do, as Kyun mentioned, the mental training, really remembering back on your experience and going step by step are all ways you can go through. Now, in the meantime, we'll be here every day from 9:30 to 10 a.m. Korea time, bringing you more topics young people are talking about. Special thanks to Cheska Dainong.
Pleasure's always mine, thank you.
And Park Ki-hoon. All right. Thank you everyone for watching, and have a wonderful weekend. We are News Generation.